Thanks for everybody being on this call. So I know it's been mentioned how I've missed several practices over the last week, and I want to address that. A week ago today, identical twin girls were born that my wife and I are adopting. And the adoption actually became official yesterday afternoon. And my wife, myself, and our older children are just overwhelmed with joy to welcome them to our family, to love them unconditionally, and just share life with them. The twins were born prematurely. Thank God they are doing really well, but they're going to have to be in the NICU for quite some time. And after much discussion with my wife and doctors, and a decision that I've wrestled with quite a bit since I knew that this adoption was on the table, I've decided to opt out of the 2020 baseball season. We feel this is the best decision for these babies and for our family as well. Just to give a little bit of background here, adoption has been something that we've been trying to do now for a few years. And anybody who has tried to adopt before knows that it's quite the roller coaster. And actually have had a couple that didn't work out. One where we actually had the baby for a few days, and the family changed their mind. And so, having said that I knew about it for a couple of months. I was also cautiously optimistic that it would actually go through, having some of the previous experiences. It just so happened that the timing of their birth was the exact same day of our first workout. Before I forget to do it, I do want to just thank Farhan and thank Kapler for their support in this decision. I ultimately would still make the same decision, no matter whether I had the support or not. But it's certainly nice to have the leaders of the organization back me in my decision, and a couple of guys that are family men themselves. I think to answer the other part of your question about how much did it factor in for me getting the virus, yes, that was a factor for me. I mean, Henry, I can't sit here and tell you that I know what the right answer is to this or the wrong answer to this, but after weighing it for a long time, talking to doctors, just feel like in the current state that we are right now, and these babies being as fragile as they are for the next 4 months at minimum, this ultimately wasn't that difficult a decision for me. From a baseball standpoint, it was a tough decision. From a family standpoint, and feeling like I'm making a decision to protect children, our children, I think it was relatively easy. I haven't said that again. I'm rambling a little bit here. I completely understand that not playing baseball doesn't wholly eliminate the risk of contracting the virus. But I do think it eliminates it to a certain degree, one that it makes myself and my wife feel more comfortable than we would otherwise. And really the decision came down to, I might have talked about it, 4 or 5 days ago on the call. It came down to unknowns. Talking to different doctors, there is no solid answers whether, if the babies contract the virus, will it affect them immediately? Will it affect them in the long term? Unfortunately, there's just not data right now. This is so new that we just don't have those answers. And having said all that, that's kind of like a rough synopsis of how I arrived at this decision.
Okay, just a couple of quick follow-ups. Are they a boy and a girl? 2 boys, 2 girls?
2 girls.
And were they born here in the Bay Area?
I'm gonna keep that stuff private, just for the sake of them and everybody involved.
Okay, and then one last thing, just to follow up. You said you mentioned 4 months. Is that the expected time that they'd be in the NICU?
No, that's not the expected time. I just referenced 4 months because most babies, from what I've learned, the first 2 months of life, their immune systems are pretty weak and compromised.
Right.
But for premature babies, you can extend that another 2 months.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, next question to Kerry Crowley. Kerry?
Hi, Buster. Congratulations to you and your family. I'm curious, you've spent most of your career championing the cause of childhood cancer and raising money for childhood cancer. And I'm wondering if you've had a similar passion for, finding homes for adopted children, and where you and your wife kind of found this opportunity and the chance to make a difference in children's lives, and how that started.
Yeah, Kerry, I think the decision for us, it really just boils down to our faith, and that the love that we feel for God, and then the love that He's bestowed upon us. And I think a decision like this to adopt is the fruit of that. I was joking with my wife the other day. We've been together since high school, and was laughing like, who would have ever thought, at this point of our lives, this is where we would be. So it's been great, and loved every second of it. And as hard as this process has been, it's also been extremely rewarding. It's been great conversations that I've been able to have with my wife and our two older children. And I think there's definitely a correlation between our compassion or passion, whatever you want to say, for children with childhood cancer. I think we feel that about children in general, no matter what the circumstances are. So where we go from here, as far as how we may help or facilitate adoptions going forward, I think remains to be seen. Right now, we're just, again, overwhelmed with joy that we in this place and have this opportunity.
Thank you.
Next question to Amy Gutierrez. Amy?
Hey, Buster, congratulations. I just worked out, so I'm not doing video. Congratulations. I'd love to know Lee and Addie's reaction, and are you sharing the babies' names?
Well, Lee and Addie, as you know them a little bit, were over the moon. And actually, yesterday, I mentioned it became official yesterday afternoon. They had cut up a bunch of confetti and started throwing it over their head. And to say they were excited is definitely an understatement. And the names are Ada and Livy.
How do you spell them?
Adalivvi.
Are those family names by any chance?
They're not.
Okay. Thanks, Buster. Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, next question to Sean Cunningham. Sean, your line's open.
Thank you. Congratulations, Buster. My quick question just has to deal with the team itself, just knowing the support from your teammates. How was that over this past week or so? And did you have a moment to actually address the team or anything like that before making this decision?
Everybody has been great. I mean, I had an opportunity about a week ago to kind of tell them the situation. Again, as I mentioned before, how adoption can change very quickly before it's finalized. I had to be cautious there. I think for myself and my family's self, of being overconfident in the situation, but I have not had a chance to address them as a whole since making this decision. Unfortunately, part of this decision is not being at the ballpark every day, so it kind of defeats the purpose if I were to go to the ballpark and talk to them as a group. But I have told some of the guys on the team personally, and I've actually spoke with Cap about that the other day, that if he ever thinks it's appropriate for me to address the group as a whole, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, next question to Ann Killian. Ann, your line's open.
Hi, Buster. Congratulations. That's such great news.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, just in the bigger context of what's happening in baseball right now, you had what's kind of become for some of us, the line of the reopening, which is on Saturday, you said, what are we doing? And I think that that's something that's kind of, everyone's kind of trying to figure out for their own. Does what you're going through, do you think it's just showing that for every player, this is just such an individual decision, and who is in your life, how many people you're talking to, whether it be your newborn infants or your elderly parents or whoever you want to have contact with? I mean, what can you kind of put your situation in a little bit of the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think first I'd like to say, the what are we doing part. I had a little bit of a fear when I said that it would be taken out of context. I don't want that to be taken out of context. When I said that, I was referencing, us being on the phone call and looking at a screen, and us, some of us having masks on. And it was more, a light and funny moment than anything. And then to get to your question about it being an individual decision, 100% it's an individual decision. I mean, I've spoken with different guys across the league, and, I think to be honest with you, and, full disclosure, I think that if these babies hadn't been born right now and weren't premature, I'd probably be playing this season. So again, it's back to your question or point. I do think it's very much an individual decision, because we're all trying to decipher information that's changing rapidly. And, that can be, as baseball players, we're so used to a schedule. We're so used to that schedule coming out the fall or winter before, and it being locked in and really not moving at all. And this one certainly has not been the case.
Thanks.
Next question to Alex Pavlovic. Alex.
Hey, Buster. First of all, congratulations. I know you mentioned that you had briefly talked to Gabe. Is your goal, I mean, once you get through all this, as they get into a season, to be involved in some way, or to maybe be a sounding board for teammates, or would you feel like that was out of place?
To be honest, Alex, we haven't even talked about that yet. I mean, it's something I'm completely open to, but I would defer to Cap on that one.
Can wait a minute here. There's no more questions in the queue for Buster, but we can wait a couple seconds to see if there's anything else. There's a question from Anthony Flores. Anthony?
Yeah. Hey, Buster. Congratulations. Can you hear me?
I got you. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, just wondering, I know this has just happened, but what do you think you're going to miss most as you're watching them out there on the field trying to play this season? I know this has just happened and all these thoughts, so I just kind of wonder what you think you're going to miss most about missing the baseball season.
Yeah. Look, there's no question, especially once games start up, this is going to be hard for me. So I have had a little bit of time to think about that. And honestly, as a baseball player, we're kind of, I'm not sure if all professional athletes are wired the same way or not, but there's such a satisfaction in going out and trying to accomplish something with a group of guys that become your friends over the course of a year or multiple years. And whether that, that goal is reached or not, by the end of it, there's satisfaction in knowing that you really put everything into it. And I think I'm going to miss that the most is not having that challenge of overcoming hurdles and obstacles and being able to celebrate the good times and being able to share some of the down times. But and definitely, hopeful and know I'll keep my body in shape and be ready to go next year.
John Shea?
Yeah, hey, Buster. Again, congratulations. Such a secondary question, baseball. How much might you monitor the team? How much might you be in communication with the guys? How much might you be available to young catchers? In particular, Bard is fast emerging, and they just drafted Bailey in the first round. Just your thoughts as if the season does start and the Giants do play, how much of a relationship will you have with the team?
Yeah, again, I think that's similar to what Alex asked me. The way I've answered this before is, I feel very lucky to have come into an organization where there's a catcher, like Benji Molina that supported me and was there for me to bounce ideas off of, to watch, learn from. And I've always wanted to, at some point in my career, do the same. So definitely am available. Again, I'll defer to Cap on that one for what he thinks makes the most sense.
Next up is Henry Schulman.
Buster, this question comes from my girlfriend who's a NICU nurse. So for the sake of domestic tranquility, can you say how premature the babies were?
They were born right at 32 weeks.
Thank you.
Next question to Ann Killian.
Hey, Buster, I was actually gonna ask that too, but also, was their birth a surprise? I mean, it was a surprise, right? It wasn't a scheduled like when you said it was the same day as workouts were supposed to be. When were you expecting them to arrive?
Yeah, and I think I'm definitely willing to divulge a certain amount of it, but just out of respect to everybody involved, I don't want to get too far into the details there.
Okay, thanks.
That looks like that's all the questions in the queue for Buster. So we can let him go. And thank you so much, Buster, for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate the time.
Okay, so now we can open it up to questions for Gabe or Farhan. And we will wait a couple seconds here for questions to populate. First question to Henry Schulman. Henry?
Hi, Farhan. Just a couple of things. I mean, given, what you knew the situation was, even back on Friday, were you kind of expecting this decision all along? And what are your thoughts on going forward at catching in-house versus going out?
Sorry, I just got, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Henry's got the quick trigger on the Family Feud buzzer today, so that's been nice to see. Buster is kind of, obviously, balancing, privacy for his family, but also, wanting to give us some sense of what's happening. I think we feel like, the communication was really good on that front. So we've had, some sense of this for a few days, like you mentioned. And it's just going to open up opportunity for all the catchers in camp. Buster was obviously slated to be our starting catcher. There's more reps, there's more opportunity, and that goes for all the guys in camp. And, we're going to have to add a sixth catcher at some point here just to be able to run our camp with all the pitchers. So we're either going to go internal or external, adding somebody, whether that's a short-term thing or somebody that we view as part of the longer-term picture, or competition to play a bulk of games this year. It's just too soon to tell, but I think we'll be reevaluating kind of both the options internally and externally in the next few days as we figure this out. Thank you.
Next question to Alex Pavlovic. Alex.
Hey, Farhan. I was wondering if you could, Buster did say he would do whatever you guys wanted in terms of helping out. If you could speak to, knowing his situation, maybe what you would hope from him or what you would allow from him. And then also just to follow up on Henry's question, I mean, the obvious second question for us is, what does this mean for Joey Bart? And you guys have said you didn't think maybe it was best for him to start on opening day, but does this change that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as accommodating as Buster is, we want to be careful to, not take up too much of his time, especially, in the next few weeks. His family's going to have their hands full. But for us as a front office, being able to get his counsel both on, our personnel and what we might look to do outside, that's something that we would value. And I'm sure Cap feels the same way. I mean, obviously Buster is a tremendous leader in the clubhouse and has a really good feel of things there. But our priority is going to be respectful of his time and space. But yeah, I mean, I think we want him as involved and as engaged as his schedule and his situation allows. And as far as Joey goes, we talked about this some. This is a tough environment to evaluate young position players that you maybe went into the situation thinking they needed more competitive reps at the upper levels, AA, AAA. We're having these workouts. They're in live BP. A guy takes a good swing and hits a ball 430 feet, and that's all well and good, but it's not really a substitute for getting the 100, 200, 300 at bats that you might be getting in AA and AAA, where you get a much better sense of whether a guy's capable of handling major league pitching on a day in, day out basis. So, that's kind of a more general statement about all the prospects we have in camp. It's great for them to have exposure to our coaching staff and to be at Oracle Park. And certainly we're doing some evaluating there, but it's just not the same as being able to see those guys perform at the upper levels, as a way of just breaking down the door to the big leagues. So again, for Joey and for all the catchers in camp, it's certainly going to open up opportunity. It's hard to talk about specific timelines or exactly what that might mean at this point.
Next question to Hannah Kaiser. Hannah.
Hi, this is for both Farhan and Gabe. If you guys want to figure that out. So Buster gave you both a lot of credit for how supportive you were of his decision to opt out. And I'm curious sort of generally at this stage when there's, when everyone's kind of weighing their particular personal situation and their tolerance for risk, and we do have sort of so much uncertainty around the pandemic, how are you balancing being conscientious of that and giving guys room to have these anxieties and potentially opt out with keeping morale high and keeping people sort of feeling like they're ready to play a baseball season as soon as 2 weeks from now?
Cap, why don't you go ahead?
All right, thanks, Hannah.
You muted yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah, for that question. I think it's a really important one. I think right now we focus on any player that needs support. So obviously Buster, it's a no-brainer. We're just going to support wholeheartedly. He's got a situation that, with premature adopted babies, and that is a no-brainer. But there are some situations that seem a little less clear, and in those situations we just throw all of our support behind any player and make sure that they have a space to talk things through. And I think that baseball in those kind of conversations just becomes secondary. We certainly keep a lot of energy in the stadium, and we think about morale, to your point, but before we do that, we focus on the health and the safety and ultimately the mental well-being of our players, so that we can create that some of the heightened intensity in the ballpark.
Next question is Sam Pasco. Sam?
Hey, Farhan, I just want to get your thoughts on Tyler Heineman. Gabe spoke pretty highly of him yesterday. Do you see him as someone that could take over full time for Buster this year, or are you still going to go with more of the kind of committee platoon approach throughout the 60-game season?
Yeah, obviously him and Rob Brantley have been in the conversation to be backing up Buster. And, like we were saying, there's going to be more opportunity there. Whether we ultimately decide it's a timeshare or there's a starter and a backup, we'll just have to see. We just added Chadwick Tromp also to the camp, and he's taken some nice swings since coming in. So, we've got, at least in terms of those three guys that have sort of played in AAA in some of the big leagues, you've got a left-handed bat, a right-handed bat, and a switch hitter. So it could mean different configurations. And again, I think we're still certainly open to looking outside the organization, perhaps for somebody with a little more experience, especially if we think it'll help us early on in the season. But configuration of how those at-bats are going to get distributed kind of still remains to be seen. We obviously still have some time to figure that out. Cap, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think that's spot on. Just take the next couple of days to regroup and evaluate what we have. Yeah, I think you said everything necessary there.
Next question to Henry Schulman. Henry, your line's open.
Thank you. This question is for Gabe. I think it's, excuse me, it's wonderful and very modern that, you guys support Buster like this. I'm just wondering on just some personal level, you would look so forward to having, to managing a team with Buster on it. Does that sort of maybe just boost the hope that everything in this country gets all settled next year and that you could actually have him next year, under your wing?
Definitely look forward to the opportunity to manage Buster. No question about that. And I think maybe this is a good time to address the other topic about our ability to keep Buster involved. And when Buster's in the bullpen working with our catching coach, Craig Albernaz, he also is mindful of the young catchers that Farhan mentioned, Tyler Heineman, Rob Brantley, Chadwick Tromp, Pat Bailey, Joey Bart, to name a few. And when he speaks, the catching drill stops and everybody listens. And I think we would be foolish not to leverage that. To Farhan's point, we'll need to be very cognizant of respecting Buster's time and his space. But to the degree that he is willing to be involved, we can be creative in finding ways to involve him. That is my intention and my wish. I'm pretty confident based on my conversations with Buster that he will be willing and actually excited about participating and helping. And for that reason, Henry, I think there's going to be a lot of relationship building that goes on between Buster and I before the start of next season. And while I definitely will look forward to working with him in 2021, I also feel confident that I'll be working with him in 2020.
Thank you.
Next question to Alex Pavlovic. Alex?
Hey, Gabe, you've mentioned a few times over the last week how personal the decision is. And I know Farhan had his son on this call. I was wondering for both of you, you're both fathers, if that maybe helped you understand over the last week and if that was part of your thinking as you understood what Buster was going through.
Yeah, I put myself in Buster's position often over the course of the last week. And I think Buster said it perfectly. It's not a difficult one. And I think that a lot of people around baseball will say family first. And I think it's important that we actually put that into action by throwing all of our support and making these decisions even easier for players, because they know that they have the support of the leadership in the organization.
Yeah, I would add to that. And, obviously yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it was kind of an obvious and easy call for Buster. And I think the fact that he, took some time to think it through shows his dedication and loyalty to his teammates and how much he loves the game and loves to play. But, more broadly, we talked about this is an individual decision. And so, I don't even think it's fair to create some standards like, if you have an X situation in terms of your family dynamic at home, that warrants opting out. I mean, I think we have to support every individual's decision from a player and staff standpoint. I mean, I would add, I'm really encouraged by the environment that we've created at the ballpark. The operations group, everybody in the organization has done an incredible job creating an environment that, we feel is safe. I know MLB just released some numbers on, the really low positive rates on tests done post intake. And that speaks to the environments that, have been created around the league, and a credit to the players and staff that are being really careful with everything. But, as we've alluded to, beyond, the health environment in terms of, limiting or completely eliminating infections, there is a mental health aspect to this. I mean, there is a higher level of anxiety than there would normally be. And I think with each passing day, people get increasingly comfortable because there is a new normal, and there's been a lot of positivity in our camp. But that's something that we have to be mindful of as well. And Gabe spoke to it, just keeping the lines of communication open, supporting our players, our coaches, our staff, the guys in the clubhouse, making them feel heard as we go through all of this, I think is going to be vital to keeping things going and keeping everyone safe.
Next question, Andrew Baggerly. Andrew?
Hi, Farhan. You mentioned, I think on the radio yesterday, that Buster may not be the only player with young families in the boat of trying to decide whether to play or not. Obviously, you have to make preparations for the season. Do you have some clarity on that, or do you expect other players may decide to opt out?
Bags, I kind of made that comment generically. It wasn't kind of in reference to anybody else's situation. If I said it that way, I misspoke. So I wasn't kind of speaking specifically to anybody else's.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Okay, well, that looks like that's all the questions in the queue. So that will conclude today's media availability. And thank you again, everyone, for hopping on this morning.